And then this is just the beginning. So if you leave here feeling like, I mean, what did we even get to? That's okay. That's okay. This is just an opening step, right? We're not going to solve things tonight. We're going to discuss things tonight, right? We're going to be with each other in conversation about topics tonight. And then lastly, the flow. So again, I'm going to let all of our amazing panelists quickly introduce themselves, and then I'm going to give a couple questions. So we have about 3 questions to guide the conversation tonight. So we'll be halfway talking about gender inclusion, and then we're going to then transition to anti-Blackness within the Latinx field, right? Okay, perfect. You all right? Okay, you're a little quiet. I know we're on a panel, but you're still supposed to be going with you. Okay, so quickly with our panelists' introductions, we have some photos here. So actually, I think I'll just have folks go, we'll just go here and we'll go down. So give us just a quick overview of who are you, your name, your pronouns, and what brings you to this space with us today.
Hello everyone, how are you? My name is Antonio Dosa. What brings me to this space? I mean, why wouldn't I be here? This is an amazing event. This holds energy that, for me personally, when I first came to this event, it was like, oh wow, this is what straight people feel like at the Congress, right? So it's just a beautiful energy to see all of my beautiful people who share, you know, all of the same things that I like and I love, and just to see everyone smiling and being happy and being comfortable. I mean, there's nothing better than that. So I'm very blessed to be here.
Hola, mi nombre es Ana Mazacote. My pronouns are she, her. And I guess what brings me here is that I have been dreaming of a salsa festival space like this for decades. I've been in this scene for a little while, and it's just such a joy to be able to be in community in a space that's just so welcoming, inclusive, and open. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello to you again. My name is Franklin Lorenzo. I am a professional photographer and dancer, and this is the first queer event that I attend, and the energy that I'm getting from all of you is heart-touching, so thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Morel. I have been dancing for a long time. No, but I'm really excited to be here. I think that having a space where you can just really, you know, do what you love and love what you love at the same time, it's just amazing. So I've been doing like same gender social dancing for a while, but it's just really different in this space, the energy, and also seeing others enjoy the same feeling that I get when I dance is just very rewarding. So I'm excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Sekou McMillan. I've also been in the scene for a long time. And what brings me here is community. Like, I really love engaging into spaces that are created and then nurtured with purpose. So that alone, just that feeling of that when you're in those kind of spaces, it's like, it's almost undescribable as I'm not describing it, but I just say that it brings me here, it fills me up, and it always leaves me pushing forward. So I love being in community, and that's what brings me here. Spaces that are born and nurtured with purpose.
Hello, I'm Serena Spears. I'm a dancer from Brooklyn. I've been dancing all styles for a very long time, but Latin dance about 8 years. And coming here was really inspired by my best friend. But I didn't struggle as a follower, but I saw struggle as trying to lead, trying to break the norm, and coming to support her, but also realizing that I could also break the norm if I wanted to. I didn't have to stick to what felt comfortable for everyone else. I could do what felt comfortable for me. So thank you.
Hi everyone! My name is Desiree Godsell. I'm the Desiree and the Alex and Desiree. And I am so happy to be here. My pronouns are she and hers. And I've been dancing for a long time, all styles, and as well. And I am here for the freedom. and for the joy, for the smiles, the rainbows. I'm here for it all, so that we can wear what we want to wear, dance what we want to dance with, and I have a lot of friends here.
Okay, so amazing panel, right? So we're going to get started. First, we're going to talk about the gender inclusive piece, right? And so you will see on the two sides, this is a short definition, so we're all on the same page. So a concept that transcends mere equality, right? We're not looking for just folks to be equal. It's the notion that all services, opportunities, and establishments are open to all people, and that male and female stereotypes do not define societal goals or expectations, right? So we're really trying to break beyond the binary, beyond these societal rules, specifically within the dance space. So this is the realm of the conversation we're going to dive into. So we have 3 questions for our first 4 panelists here, first 2 panelists here. The first is, what do we believe are the biggest issues facing gender inclusion within the Latin dance world? Right? The second, why is it important that we even address these issues? Right? Are we on them? Right? Are they important to talk about? Like, what is the impact if we don't have these conversations? And then third, what do we hope people remember and or do as a result of this particular panel as relates to gender inclusion? Right? So for folks, as you leave out, right, what do you want to share? What do you want to remember? So those are the questions that I pose to the panel to kind of reflect on and think about and to share with us tonight.
So the first question, what do you believe are the biggest issues facing gender inclusion within the Latin dance world? I'm going to tell you something. My personal experience might be very different from the other panelists. Growing up as a gay Dominican was very tough for me because going to school, I was picked on a lot because of the way I walked. Even my own family members sometimes criticized because of the way I held my wrist and the way that I swished my hips and all of these things. When I found Latin dance, it was so liberating for me personally. And I felt another level of acceptance because I remember the first time I followed, it was like, 2 males dancing salsa. It was, in my world, it was unheard of and it was criticized a lot. And to be able to do that in this space for me felt super liberating and super comfortable. And I felt like, wow, this is what it should feel like. I really did feel a high level of acceptance in the Latin community. But in terms of inclusion, one of the things that I think can be improved upon are 2 things, is awareness and exposure, and also education on both sides. Because I think that sometimes I've come across individuals who made very homophobic comments that offended me and offended the people in my network. And I think it's because of the lack of understanding and, again, being exposed and being aware of, we're all human beings. And I think when you meet someone that really touches you, and someone you really care for, and someone you really respect, and someone you really admire, very little times, at least is my perspective, I don't really think about their gender, their sexual orientation, their skin color, or anything like that. And so I think sometimes just having people understand that we come from all different walks of life, that we, what happens behind our personal choices, the things that we wear, the way that we carry ourselves has nothing to do with, there are little aspects of us, but it's not everything about us. And so I think that on one side, I think people need to just be more educated on the fact that we're all different and it's okay. And I also think that, I know we're gonna get, I don't wanna jump into the next topic, but just like for African Americans, it's been a struggle and it's been a really, really long process, right? To gain acceptance, to equality, all of those things. I think for us, it's also a process, but I think we're making ginormous steps. I think we're in the right direction. The fact that we have an event, a queer Afro Latin dance event, is huge. And I want to really commend Jahaira and Angelica in the catch, because I'm getting just chills just think I know Anna said you dreamed about this. I couldn't even fathom that this could be possible. And the fact that y'all are doing this is just so amazing. This is a ginormous step forward for the Afro Latin dance community, but especially for the queer, the gay community, because it didn't exist before. And that's vision, being able to see something before it happens and manifest it. It's just incredible. So I think that if we can also educate ourselves on why do people feel this way about us, why is it that it's taking them so long? You know, some people grew up with a certain mentality, and it doesn't mean that they're not open to change, and they're not open to accepting us for who we are, and how we walk, and how we talk, and who we choose to love. But I think it's a process, so I think that, again, just having more education on both sides, I think is going to be really, really powerful for us to move in a better direction.
I think the biggest issue starts with yourself, honestly. Being able to accept yourself, being able to accept what you do. For me personally, I come from a background very traditional. I've been dancing since I was a little boy. I've danced in every quinceañera that you could think of when I was little. So for me, dancing with a female makes complete sense. I would see two guys dancing together, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? This is not what you're supposed to be doing, being who I am. But like, no way. Like, this is not okay. Why are people doing this? It's supposed to be a man and a woman dancing together, and this is coming from myself. So as I developed more energy within myself, being more accepting of myself, I was like, hey, why can't you? Why not? Let me try it. And being in a place like New York City where things are a lot more ahead and things are a lot more accepted, it was kind of an easy way for me to kind of swing into it and be like, okay, I'm gonna follow now, I'm gonna try this out, and now I'm like one of the well-known follows now. So I'm just saying, like, it comes from starting to believe in yourself and then exuding that energy out and then helping other people through you finding yourself. So I think that to start with, what is the biggest issue is probably within yourself, and then exuding that energy and helping so many other people. So So the issues we should address is, there's events and there's promoters who, because you are a part of the LGBT community, they kind of are like, some, I'll say some, not all, kind of give you the side eye or don't invite you to events because they know of this. So as forward as we are and as inclusive as we are, there's still those promoters who aren't comfortable within themselves to invite you to their event, yes? So as it's still something so cool and people like to see, same gender dancing together, there's a lot of people who still are not accepting of it and they don't appreciate it and they don't want that in their event. So to bring these issues up and to talk about it like we are right now is going to help all these promoters and all these organizers be more accepting of who we are and know that we're just people who want to show what we do too. So give us the platform, give us the stage so we can exude all our beautiful energy to everyone as well. Thank you.
Hola. Again. So I actually grew up dancing on quinceañeras, so that just is my world right there. I would say for me, I believe one of our biggest issues right now is the fact that a lot of people still think that we don't have an issue. Because we're now in a time when pride is acceptable, when we made these big changes in the legal system, people are turning their noses to the anti-LGBTQ legislation that is coming out, the things that are happening against the community. And so what happens is, out of sight, out of mind, you think that all these big, great things are happening. And so promoters don't sometimes think about the things that the microaggressions that they may be creating in communities. I remember going to New York and leading and following in a social, and one of the people coming over to me and saying, I have been wanting to lead and follow and my instructor hasn't allowed me to. Little things like that still happen that people don't know. I went into a very well-known instructor's class and different people, and I wasn't allowed to lead, right? Like that, I could see them doing that with people. And so these things still exist, some of these microaggressions still happen, and there's a certain sense of fear or dismissal sometimes that students have when they do speak up and they ask for something. And so I think that being able to build communities and collaboratives in the areas that you're on so that you can create your own safe spaces within that is really, really highly important. I know some people that are doing that in different areas. In Boston, we have a big community, and we've been doing a lot of socials with Espelotes. Serena and Kate have been doing some amazing things in New York around really teaching people different styles of dance and also leading the follow. But it's one of the biggest issues that I think that we as a community can hope to build more inclusion by just being able to share more education towards some of the instructors, some of the promoters, and some of the leaders in the community as well, and being able to help ask them, hey, do you realize that maybe something you might be doing here could actually maybe be a little better? And so events like this are amazing because, to Alex's point, I mean, like, we have this opportunity to be able to share this information, and people have asked, like, they've contacted me and asked, hey, are there articles on inclusion that I can share with my dance instructors that I can, like, actually teach in this direction that way? And so I think events like this help us really start formalizing some of the things that could help build more inclusion in the community.
I'm also from Dominican Republic. I was born and raised there until the age of 12. In Dominican Republic, it's still illegal for same gender marriage. A lot of my friends that are there have to live in hiding. They live a very depressed life, which is heartbreaking. Which also brings me to the point that Antonio made earlier, that there's a lot of things that we learned growing up that we have to unpack. I was the same way, where I would see my own kind and criticize them for being who they were. But obviously, as I got older and more educated, I started questioning everything that I had learned, only to come into full circle and realize that I was that person and I needed to be who I was. Now, adding to the question, why is it important that we have inclusion? I found the love of my life in Australia. And it was just by chance. But when I met him and his family, his family welcomed me more than my own family. But not my immediate family. My mom, my dad, they're my rock. My brothers, my nephews, they took me in. His family took me in, period. And suddenly, I'm an Italian family now. And so, when I found him, I came public that we were a couple. There was no secret anymore. Alex and I have been friends for a long time, and he can tell you that for the longest I kept my sex life, my sexual orientation between a close circle of people. But when I finally posted on Facebook that we were in a relationship, it's a coincidence? I don't know, but I definitely noticed a decline in the job offers that I was already getting in the past. There were congresses that I have been to for 6, 7, 8 years, every year. Suddenly, I announced that I'm openly married to another man, and the coincidence is that now I'm no longer getting a lot of those gigs. And that's why inclusion, and that's why talking about this is important, because there might be people here going through the same situation who don't have a voice, and we need to speak up for it. Right, and like an event like this, which again is my first one, I just feel like I can be myself 100%. I don't have to hide anything. I can dress how I want, whereas if I were to dress the way I'm dressing tonight, stay tuned. I might get like 30 looks or maybe comments, but hey, we're here, we're queer, get used to it.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that folks who have privilege in this area don't understand how much energy it takes to hide, to not talk about, to hold on to not be your full self. It takes a lot of energy, right? And the way that it impacts your mental health, right? Those are the pieces that aren't often talked about, that extra wounding trauma Just don't say anything. Oh, just, just shh. But that shh is heavy. It's heavy. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to transition here, projecting the time. Any kind of final kind of comments of what you hope people leave with or hold on to or remember?
Well, I already have the mic. I'll pass it to you. I think that when we share our stories, whether we are here as a panel or amongst yourselves, when you hear things that are unjust, unfair, racist, homophobic, whatever it is, speak up. Because through this organization, through this event, we're now forming a bigger community and a bigger sense of accomplishment that we can all do together.
I just want everyone to know that you're not alone, because I can guarantee you that maybe not the exact situation that you've gone through or are going through currently, at some point someone might have experienced something similar and something that they can also relate to. You're not alone. Even if someone hasn't gone through what you've gone through, they can be empathetic to what's going on in your life, and there's definitely help. If you feel alone, if you feel like there's no way out, if you feel like no one can understand you, trust me, there is. There's tons of, there's so much openness and so much great positive energy, not just here on stage, but also in just this event, that I'm sure that if there's for any reason something that's going on internally within you that you're like, I just feel like no one understands me, trust me, we do. Because many of us have also been through, maybe not exactly the same situation, but similar situations, and just understand that it's a process. We're all growing and we're all understanding this so-called thing, this thing called life. So just be patient, and again, I echo what Franklin said, be vocal about how you're feeling, because your story can be also something that's gonna help the next person, so.
Leave here believing yourself more and more and more every day. It's so important to kind of just, take a look at yourself and take a look at what's surrounding you, because we can be in such a twilight zone and like a moment where we're just on the go, and we don't notice so much that's happening around us and within us. So take a moment, take a breather, and be like, hey, what's going on? How do I feel today? Check in with yourself. It's so important to do that. That really helped me in my journey in dance, and it still helps me every day with my business and everything. So I would say, take time for yourself, believe in yourself every day more and more and more, and just be you. Just enjoy yourself and love yourself. Yes? Yes?
This is about making space. And I find it strange that these questions really, they aren't just for us four on this side of the aisle, they're for everybody, I believe. And I actually would love, not to assert conversation, but I actually think it's important to hear from everybody. Most people know me, I was originally married, I'm a bi woman, I was in a relationship with a cisgender man, and when you're there, you hear all the echoes of people saying stuff, right? And so sometimes you do get tired of being the person that's speaking up in the room. So you need people around you that are also speaking up and saying things, and you also need to, you get to a point where you start looking around and you start asking, who's not in the room with us? How do we bring them in the room with us? And it's just as important, I think that it's really, really, really important to remember that it's not just about making space because we're queer, but it's about making space because it's the right thing to do. So maybe just take that and ask who's not in the room, how can I make space, how can we bring more people together, how can I do something so that maybe I'm not the only person speaking up in the room, not always having to do that, so.
Thank you. I'm trying to make time for us to have a larger conversation. So if you see me moving us, I'm trying to get all of us included in the combo. So this image again is just kind of a lasting, I'm a visual person, and so it gives us kind of a visual representation of this part of the conversation in terms of really what we're shooting for. What is the dream, what is the vision? It's a sense of not just including folks, people really feel like they belong. right? You walk into a space and you know when that space feels right? You know when you're just like, these are my people, right? With what has been your experience with anti-Blackness within the Latin dance world? What has been the impact of these experiences for you and or your dancing? Okay? And then again, I'm gonna kind of wrap it up with, and what do you want non-Black people to remember and or do as a result of your sharing today?
Hello, everyone. So, I come from the concert dance world. I grew up dancing elementary school, middle school, high school. I went to college for dance. And in that world, in 2020, it just like hit me like a wall. I was like, this whole time they've been saying that Western dance, ballet, is the form of dance. This is the best dance. This is the foundation of all dance. And I was like, wow, I guess it's not for me. So then I go over to Latin dance. I'm like, well, this came from Africa, so I know it's for me. And then I guess my experience really with anti-Blackness is the revisionist history of like, this is not for me. You're saying, oh, that I'm the outsider coming into this world, right? And so that kind of like erasure of like where it really comes from has been my experience with anti-Blackness, kind of tied up also with featureism and bodyism, like that I'm not my body doesn't lend to the aesthetic that needs to be presented on stage. My body isn't soft and delicate appearing, but I can be soft and delicate, hey, or that, my hair has too much frequency. It stands too tall for some people. So those kinds of things, and really what it gets to, where it got me, is feeling like, do I belong here? And that's not cool, because we saw the diagram. We saw that that's where we want to get to, is just feeling like, not even like I was invited to the party, I'm at the party, but I'm just dancing. And I'm not worried about anything. I can be free to be who I am and know that I belong in this space because I was meant to be here. And this is, I belong here. This is for me, this dance is for me. And so I think that is the thing that I'm like, when people curve people out, like, you don't belong here, like looking at you like your dance is wrong. How is it wrong? Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I could let somebody else talk, but that has been my experience with anti-Blackness. That yes, that has.
So my experience, specifically in the Latin dance world, I have two sides of this when it comes to the social dance side and then the performance side. And as a non-Latinx person, I sometimes feel that I don't necessarily have the opportunity to say something, or that I shouldn't say something, because it isn't my culture and I am a visitor. But the recognition that it is an Afro Latin dance, and not me specifically, but that Afro Latin people or people with an Afro descent shouldn't be made to feel like a visitor in their own culture. The idea that my features are not as beautiful, that it shouldn't be seen on stage, that I should have to change the way I look to be in a group that is presented on stage. My first pro dance team told me I should be straightening my hair, I should be putting someone else's hair on my head in order to match the group. I've seen costumes where the mesh is nude, but nude is nude for white people. That just the makeup is for colors that don't match well for us. They don't complement us. They don't make us look good. And if we don't speak up about these things, we feel ugly in our own skin. That we're not attractive compared to this ideal that is presented on stage. that isn't even necessarily the culture that this comes from. The idea that we're made to feel ugly in our own space, that's painful to me. And to come into this space with a lot of dance background. I do have Western background in dance, but I also have a lot of Afro-based dance. And I do feel like it's a good balance because I didn't necessarily absorb the feeling that Western dance is the be-all and end-all of dance. It isn't. It isn't. And African dance, in all its various forms of the way that it's spread through the diaspora, is difficult. It is incredibly complex, but it started as a social dance, and so it was made for the people. And there are variations that are supposed to be danced by all people because the point is community. The point is to dance together. And I do feel like Western dance pulls in this idea of being the best in competition and being exclusionary on purpose in order to strive for some idea of excellence. But that African dance, the base of it, is to bring everyone together. And I think for me, as I came into this space, I want to fight the concept of pushing performance first and bringing the social aspect to the forefront. The point is to be together. The point is to work together, to see each other, to see the variations that we all have, and to not all look the same, to not all have to be like as super flexible to do this dance. That's not the point.
Can you say it again?
The point is not this.
Yeah.
But see, it is interesting because I do have both sides to a degree. I can be in that space, but for me, what feeds my soul in this dance is that community social aspect. And I do think that what I specifically fight for, and it is related to this anti-Blackness, is not pushing performance. And I mean, it's valuable, it has its own space, but not making the priority and pinnacle performance and competition with each other. Making it about community, making it about inclusion, making it about seeing each other, and having space for being yourself in your dance. And feeling comfortable that you are valuable in your dance. You don't have to look like anybody else. You don't have to do what anybody else is doing on the dance floor. I don't care what anybody says. Your sauce is not wrong. It's just different.
Hello. It's me. From the other side. Okay. So, well, I've been in the scene for like maybe a long time. Maybe a very long time. Maybe a long time. And so I can take you back to the early 90s, you know, and I would just, I'm not going to do all that though, but I'm going to say this much, is that I have seen a lot of changes in the Afro Latin dance scene. How about this? It's called the Afro Latin Dance Scene. How about that? So that's a big change because it didn't start there. It didn't start there, not at all. It was called just the Latin dance scene, but now it's very, very clearly the Afro Latin dance scene. But however, I don't see a lot of Afro Latin people. But okay, that's fine, right? So, but there's reasons for that, and that's why we're having this conversation about anti-Blackness. It's not by coincidence that they're not here, and it's not like they don't exist. It's not like dark-skinned Latinos don't exist. You do see them, especially, I'll say this much, especially in markets that have a huge influence. The US market has a very huge influence. The European markets have a very huge influence because of money, right? So in these markets, you don't see, but say if you're in Panama, you're gonna see a bunch of Afro-Latinos dancing because that's what's there, right? But when you get into these markets, you don't see it. When you go to these festivals, you don't see it. People who, like I'm me, and then I see a brother there, like we're the darkest people in the room. And that is completely okay, I love you, right? Well, I love my husband, you know what I'm saying? because I'm comfortable inside of my skin, you know. What I'm getting at is that it's definitely there. So sometimes, just like what Anna said, sometimes the problem without addressing it is that we can pretend that it doesn't exist because we're not talking about it, right? But I can tell you, I mean, I've been introduced in Puerto Rico as this guy, you gotta see him, he can really dance, and he's black, you know. I was introduced in Puerto Rico on a large stage as this. I mean, was that a compliment? I mean, so to become a spectacle, you know, even though you are, it seems like you're getting all this success, is what people will be they'll look at. But then when you're referred to, you're a spectacle, really. You know, you're a novelty act. And then what happens in novelty acts is that you find a new novelty act to focus on when you're done focusing on that novelty act. So they're not a part of the community at large. They're constantly being put in as novelty acts. And you have very few slots for these novelty acts, right? So, and that's why you don't tokens, you call it tokens, right? And they're amazing, right? So was I a token? I was amazing, I'm fierce, right? So like, I know that, you know? Like, that's how I feel about myself. So I own my blackness, I own what I do, I own how I move, therefore you have no other choice other than to respect what I do and how I do it, right? However, I'm not blind to what's going on around me. I do notice what's happening. You know, I do know that you just introduced me crazy, you know, and God rest his, you know, God rest his soul, the person who did that. That's one direction I can go with this conversation, right? But then I'll move it forward. I'll move it forward from there to say that I also came up around, there was a crew of us, of black artists that were together coming up. So we had like people to talk to, and we were able to come into community with each other and like have a support system, and then we knew we weren't alone. So that's the reason why I feel like, just like Anna said, and some of you guys said, just knowing that not being alone, you know, that you're not alone. And even being the novelty, I'm you know, I'm gonna shut it down. So like, I'm just saying, you know, I'm gonna represent well, I'm gonna represent myself, and I'm gonna do my thing. So that you'll know that the some person coming behind me, they can do the same thing. You know, I'm not the only one that can do this, and I'm not the only one who's currently doing it. So I'm always pushing to expand spaces, like in my current work. I'm a professor of dance. I teach Africanist aesthetics, the embodied Africanist aesthetics as a dancer, and in that right there, in my work, I touch on dancers from Senegal, from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from the US, and we talk about through lines, we talk about so many different things in teaching Africanist aesthetics. So here, when I come here, I teach from the same space. I teach about the Africanist aesthetics and how to move through and give you some elements of it, and then talk about self-expression, talk about community, and things like that. You know, educating people that are in front of you about that so that they understand that this is coming from a culture of blackness. But it's not just coming from a culture of blackness, it's a culture of blackness that welcomes all. And then therefore, it's very easy to be co-opted because of the welcoming of all who come into the space. So as long as we stay open, but also know that we are welcome back and always in the space, it starts with self, like what Antonio said. You know, and I know because I've been in the scene for a long time, talking a lot, I'm sorry guys, but like it starts with self. Like I had to say, you know, when I first started getting like rejections and then being told things about my dancing that didn't quite make sense, but it makes sense to me today, that really were just saying, you're too black, you know. I decided to own my background and what I do and bring that to my dance, right? And that's before it was called Afro Latin Dance. A lot of us decided to do that to make sure that that word Afro got put in there. So now it's there. I'm not saying I did it single-handedly. I'm saying I was a part of the crew of people who made sure that people started to recognize that this was coming from Black dance. And this is a part of what we call Black dance or diasporic dance from Africa. It's an Africanist aesthetic. It's not from Africa, but it was born from people who have roots from Africa, and it was influenced by and nurtured on different soil. And therefore you see different iterations. Samba, salsa, house. So you see these things. So it's definitely there, and Anti-Blackness has played a huge role in erasing those people from this. And you can do it, you can look to your right, left, and to the back of you, and you will see that the erasure is real. Being in these types of spaces, you would believe that the population for the world was different than it is. And you have to understand that this is actually a misrepresentation of the world's population, actually. So, but not, how do I say this? Every time you see me, I'm always smiling. I'm always in a good mood. This does not depress me, it does not pull me down, it doesn't do anything like that to me. However, I do recognize it, and I'm constantly trying to share with people its roots, and also expand it out to everyone, and let everyone know that they're always welcome, and that you are welcome, and we should just continue to spread that love, and be in community, and be in purpose. I don't know what I said, but
Thank you for saying. I too felt like we have these conversations, some of these Zoom panels in 2020, and I even kind of had to check my own privilege. I did, and I kind of I had to check myself because I was really feeling at first how they gonna come for me? And I've been in the space being the only Black girl. First of all, people get really upset when I'm like, I'm Black. You're like, no, but for real. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I can be Black. And not Dominican or whatever else, and it's fine. And I'm still a good dancer, right? You still had a good dance, right? But anyway, check myself. So I was like, I'm out here. I'm wearing my fro out. I'm holding it down. But then there's so many other experiences. There's so many people who are, really struggling to be visible. To be hey, I'm trying to be out here. And their dance is not appreciated. Their style is not appreciated. But then it's so who is curbing this, right? The promoters. I mean, it's so many things. It's a lot of things. So it's wonderful to see Black and brown bodies on the stage, to see different works presented, to seeing African aesthetics in the classrooms, in the workshops, to hear stories from Black and brown people, and to feel included. So I think all of those things are really, really helping us talking about it, us social dancing more. Those are all really, really great things. And the belonging, I'm just going back to that because that's just the realest thing, just for people to feel like they belong and they're able to be here.
So I feel like everything we said ties back to money, which is unfortunate. But I do want to raise the idea of colorism in the scene, and the fact that when I think it is different by gender. I think that it is easier for a darker Black man to be in this space and become a professional than a darker Black woman. If you think about partnerships, very often, if there is a darker Black man, it is a white partner. And I recognize that sometimes it's just circumstance, and I'm not saying that all Black people need to be partnered together. This is not the point, but I do think that we need to point out the people who are most affected by this, are darker Black women. I have a very hard time thinking of any darker Black women professionals, and it's not that they're not out there. There are phenomenal darker Black female dancers. However, if from the very beginning you have a hard time getting dances, you feel that you're not included in class, you feel you're not included at socials, you feel discriminated against if you join a team, the concept of getting to the point of becoming a professional, if you don't see them up there, there's so many dark Black women during these talks that we had during the pandemic that were like, I dropped out of dance because I don't like fighting this hard to do a dance that belongs to me. You know? And I feel this for them, recognizing that I have the privilege of looking much lighter, having curly hair that technically can be straightened, you know, and I want there to be more of this concept of community for us, of building within ourselves. So like Sekou was saying, this idea of tokenism creates a competition among us because there's only 1 or 2 slots for us at a festival. You know, and so we're fighting to get that spot instead of banding together to be a force to be reckoned with. And there is a fear of speaking out because if you do, they'll blacklist you and you won't be that person and they won't see you. And so there's, yeah, if you rock the boat, they just don't include you anymore. And so there's a fight between just pulling out and creating your own spaces, screw this. I don't want to fight this hard. I shouldn't have to fight this hard. This is supposed to be fun. But also recognizing that if we do that, if we pull out and create our own spaces and don't fight to be included, they are happy to not include us and not see us and not have to put us on stage and not even have to deal with a token. So I want the concept of the people who have more visibility reaching down and making a point to bring up the people who are having the most trouble. And so one of the things that I think we don't necessarily think of as we move through this space is how do you discriminate subconsciously? Who do you dance with? I want you to take a look at the end of the night, don't change what you do, but just take a notice of who do you dance with? Who do you pick out? Do you go around the edges of the room and pick out people who have not been dancing? Do you notice who hasn't been dancing? Do you notice who gets walked by? Excuse me, not you. Would you like to dance? that sensation of having, being in the space, being available to dance, being readily available to dance, and having someone dance with the person next to you all night long. And hearing these stories from Black women of recognizing that, I've had it even happen to me where I went to congresses in Europe and they just assume I can't dance. I'm like, no, I can dance. And when you see me, and it's so fascinating over the course of the 3 days, the very first night, I have to ask for every dance. But they start to see, and on the second night, the people who had danced with me the night before, oh, you're really good. Oh, really? You don't know. And I'm very sheltered from this in New York because we do have a very inclusive community and we do have a lot of just colors and genders and representation in New York. So I am sheltered from this and I do recognize that. But when I travel outside of New York, if I'm not there for performing and I'm just there for fun, who's this Black girl? And it gets worse. The darker you are, I have to recognize this colorism. And so I do think that we have this recognition that yes, we're Black and yes, we deal with discrimination, but we also have to reach even further to help the people who are even more discriminated against. And all of us can help this. If you don't only pick the people you love dancing with, reach out and take a notice who's not dancing. like build community further. We can build a pipeline so that there actually are darker Black dancers on stage that deserve to be seen. If they always drop out at the bottom level, there's just this concept of like, oh, they don't want it, or like, oh, they're not available. Oh, it's just not like, why are you asking about it? There's no one available. Like, who would you even want me to ask?
It's your point. That's how you get good. It's by social dancing. That's how you become the professional, right? No, I was just saying that, just to her point real quick, is like, that's how you get good, and that's how you become a professional, by social dancing. So if no one's asking you to dance and you never get to dance, right? Even if you do ask and people are turning you down, which is the other thing, it's like, how are you gonna become the professional? So,
I think to piggyback off what she was saying with the social dancing, I don't think it's also always colorism. It could be they just don't know you and they're trying to see if you can dance, you know? And that happens to anybody. They're like, well, I don't know you. I don't know if you can 6'7". I don't know if you got that timing, you know? So it also could be just because they don't know you are, you know? That's also a cool
or
thing.
like I was saying before, it can be also, it's all the isms.
Right.
It's the bodyism too. It's like, my body is very large and your body is not as large as mine, so you're like, oh, she's too big to dance. No, I can dance and you'll see. But why do we always have to be like that? Why do we have to always be like, oh, you'll see, and then it'll be a test, sometimes a test. Why we got a test?
So my last comment just deals with retention, right? So like you have your recruitment, you have the moment there, you have the retention, and that's what they're talking about. They're speaking to retention, this came up to me over the past 2 months, coming back to because I go in and out the scene, and then when I go in and out the scene, I'll notice that there's not a lot of like prominent people like my color on the stage. And I can't always be up there. I want to see other people, right? And so I asked them, or I asked one couple, and because they noticed that they would be the dark hue on a poster, the only dark hue on the poster, like around the world period, and then they got dropped off because I guess it was time to reach for another dark hue, one person. And then, out of nowhere, someone told someone they needed to speak with me. Right, and he was a Black Latino. A good friend of mine said, you need to speak with Sekou. And I was like, why? I don't know what this is. So I sat down and I was like, what are we talking about? And he talked about this. He was just like, I don't feel like I belong here, and this is a Black Latino. He's saying, I don't want to hear the dark jokes. I don't want to hear the darky jokes, constantly. And everyone else thinks it's all in just. But just know that they don't want to hear the jokes. I'm just like saying, we got to also recognize that we could be, that we have to start working with our language around people as well, and working with how to address people. It becomes a thing, and you may not think it's anything. I'm not saying it's you guys, because you're obviously here and you're talking and we're in community. So this is all about support. But also, sometimes it's about awareness as well. And I looked at him, and I was like, wow, that's what he wanted to talk to me about, And I'm closer to another age than he is. So I'm used to dealing with it and sifting through it and shutting it down. I had to shut it down in Europe one time with this major promoter who tried to tell a dark joke and thought it was okay. I shut it down on the spot, and everyone's like, why are you so sensitive? I'm like, because if I told a joke singling out everything, it'll be about all you guys. And that's not fair to you, so I'm not gonna tell that joke. Instead, I'm gonna shut this down. Because I'm the only person that's being affected by his joke that was meant for the room, but it was meant for me. So just know that these are microaggressions that actually make your fellow Latinos sometimes very uncomfortable, and they don't come around to be in an Afro Latin festival that they're Afro Latinos and they don't feel comfortable to be there with us. So I just wanted to close with that, just to say that my last comment is that currently today there are people who are of Latin descent and not Latin descent, who are of a darker hue, who do not feel comfortable in the Afro Latin dance See.
But I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions, to engage with the panel. We have a mic, so if you could please use that. We have volunteers in the back. We're going to be bringing mics around, so if you could just raise your hand, we'll have a mic brought up. And then, checking time, we're doing pretty good with time, so I'll just ask panelists if you can kind of share their responding. I don't know if we have time for everyone to answer all the questions, but let's engage in some community combo.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's so exciting to see events like this happen. It's so rare and unique. I was really struck by, I felt like this part of the panel talked about queerness and this part talked about Blackness. And I worry that we're erasing Black and queer people. So I'm really curious to you, what does it look like to affirm or recognize Black queerness as well in this scene?
Thank you for the question.
I agree. It was, and I think we felt it, and they almost addressed it. Like this side almost addressed it because they were like, well, I'm very curious as to what you think of this that's going on the other side. And the same thing, and I'm glad that that Antonio crossed that barrier and spoke out during this part. I think, like, to the credit of the hosting party, that they wanted to make sure that we had enough time to discuss these issues. But yeah, this is overlapping, like, big time. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, there's like an archetype, right? What do you got? Archetype, right? And the further you are from that type, like, ooh, Jesus, you get all types of strikes against you. And then especially if you are quote unquote flamboyantly within that life, right? You get more strikes as opposed to if you were someone who wasn't, you know? Like, and she asked me, Jaira asked me the other day, she goes, are you queer? And I go, am I? You know? And, you know, I don't traffic inside of this, you know? But at the same time, I'm not quote unquote, like, I'm not in the binary world. I'm not. I know I'm not. And I embrace it. So that's how I teach. I teach both the quote unquote feminine and the masculine. I call it passive and aggressive life and energy, and I live and I move around it. I'm pan everything. You know, I'm alive. I'm here. So, like, you're gonna have to, like, deal with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And whatever that is, you know, and if you can't deal with that, that is your thing. And hopefully you get over it. You know what I'm saying? I hope so, because I think you'll be happy. But
Absolutely.
I think there's so many layers because we're talking about, okay, what if you're queer? What if you're African American? What if you're African American and queer? Even within the gay community, when I speak to heterosexuals, they just don't, Alex, why don't you just find somebody your age? Okay, well, let me tell you how this works. I have to find somebody that's my age, that's family-oriented, that's successful, that's educated, that has all these qualities that quote-unquote straight people look for, but then I also have to deal with, are they feminine or masculine? Are they a top or a bottom? Are they in between? Are they binary or non-binary? Are they this or that? There's so many levels, and I think that the message that I would want people to leave with is that we are much stronger together. You're Black, I'm gay, you know, we both have struggles. And we're gonna be a lot more powerful if we stick together. So I think, like, within the gay community, we have to erase all of these, like, oh, I can't be with you because you're too feminine, or you're too this, you're too that. Within the African American community as well. Maybe this person's gay, maybe this person's Black, but again, we have similar struggles that I think that if we work together, we can start to kind of, like, you know, get rid of all of these, you know, these categories, right? Because that's what we want. We want to be able to coexist and not have to look at gender, color, and all of these other isms. That's what
I also have something to add, and it ties to what you said earlier regarding educating both worlds. For some reason, people will see queer people, and the first thing that they look at is the sexual side of that spectrum, and then they want to use that for whatever advantage. For example, I was dancing at a competition, and a cisgender male asked me to dance, for me to follow, which I did. and literally within seconds, the first move he did is that turn that they do, and they bend you forward. And I told him that is not okay. That's not okay. Just because we are on the same side of the spectrum doesn't give me the right to move my body the way you think is correct, just because you're looking at the sexual side of things. So, the other thing is, I said earlier, is that we need to be the voice for those who are not here. Prior to coming to here, I spoke with other friends who are darker complexion. I do happen to be a little lighter, so I don't really suffer the consequences as much. And to tie to what you said, Antonio, is that you said that perhaps they don't know the person, that's why they don't ask. No, their story has been that because of your skin color, they go and ask for the lighter skinned person, despite not knowing that person either. So I just wanted to bring that to light.
That in the same way that the more away from the norm you are in all of these categories, the more difficult of a time you're going to have. And so it depends on whether or not your discrimination can be invisible, which one you often pick to hide, if it is an advantage to you. And so being black is very obvious. It is hard to hide my skin color. But being queer does not have to be obvious. And so if you are in a space where you're having difficulty already, you may not be outwardly showing the other things they can discriminate against. Like, I'm very obviously born as female, very obviously black, but do I have to also add in the possible discrimination of being queer? If I want to feel more comfortable, no. And do I feel like that does a disservice? That's the question. As I get more known, I guess, I have more space to say something, you know, and I do feel like that's important, that like as you move through this space and have the ability to make change, that you do it. For the people who do not have the ability to do that. Like in New York, being queer is not weird. It's totally normal. But if you were to take that person to like middle America, they may change the way that they interact with their partner. If you take them to a country where it's illegal to be married to your partner, you may have to change the way that you interact. And so we do have this spectrum of having to hide who we are to a degree if it's hideable. And I understand the idea of doing that to protect yourself. And it's, I'm not gonna judge that. I think that that's okay if you need that for yourself. But that if you have the space to stand up for people who don't have that, to take it.
I just have to speak into it, okay. So like, growing up, we didn't talk about blackness. Like, we were black, right? We're EU. And I was like, it wasn't until I was in my 20s. And I was like, oh shit. I'm an Afro Latin. What? This is crazy. Anyway, so I just want to say I appreciate all this. I was thinking about the people who are not in the room. And a lot of that is, I feel, also not just that the floor drops out, but also a socioeconomic sense. Going to festivals is expensive, right? These are flights, these are passes, these are hotels. Even if you volunteer, you still have to get money. Like that, and even locally, right? If you want to get really good, what do? You take privates. That costs a lot of money. So I wanted to think about what are ways that we can bring people into our community who may not have the financial resources because of racism, because of blackness, because of circumstances in society which don't allow them to have the socioeconomic status to do these things. How do we bring these people into our community, and how do we fundraise for them? Like, what do you have ideas for how we can do that?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm working on right now personally is to start a community with inclusion. So it's going to be, I can't say the name right now, but it's going to be something where everyone's welcome to come, and I get sponsors to sponsor these people, almost like a big kid, like a big brother, big sister, and you're sponsoring this dancer the whole way through a whole year program. And this is a way to get those people to go to these events who don't have the right money. This also helps them with stress relief because dance is so important with stress, nonverbal communication, confidence, self-love. I mean, there's so many things that go into this. So one of the main things that I wanted to do after pandemic, going through my pause and thinking about everything and what I want to do, what I want to bring back to the scene, is a space where even if you don't have it, someone's going to sponsor you, someone's going to help you, and I want to be able to provide that space for people. So that's what I'm working towards.
But I think one of the things that a lot of people miss out on is the fact that there's so many grants out there that people can apply for all kinds of things. And for some reason, one way or the other, our community, people of color, the queer community, they don't know about this programs that they can apply to. Yes, you may need to hire the person that writes the grants, which could be a little expensive sometimes, but in the end, it will be worth it because then you get that money's return, and then you can, with that money then, provide Congress passes for a lot less, or the night passes, or whatever it is that involves getting to a Congress, make it more affordable by the organization absorbing the expenses through grants.
They've done an excellent job to get the grant money that they have today, though. Hello, they have worked tirelessly to get the funding, all of the funding. They were like, we're women, we're minority business. I mean, they've done a really good job. I would like to also say this. It is so that, boom, boom, boom. Because I like I was saying that I grew up dancing, right? But my mom was also like, you gonna get this scholarship, right? So I felt growing up the tokenism, like, okay, I'm this one because I got the scholarship to be here, and so that's why I'm here, and that's why I even know about this. How about that? I even know that exists. And that was from growing up like more kids, right? Because of course, if you have more people exposed, there's more people in the end that will be, right? But even on like as adults, I go to some of my black friends and I'm like, yeah, let's go to the salsa club. What? That's not for me. Here you go again. No, there's no sense of belonging, there's no ties, they don't think that. And I'm like, okay, no, but let's go. And I rally people and they're like, oh, this is good, this is cute, I feel the music, I'm connected. Well, you're connected for a reason, okay? And that's another thing, but oh my gosh, yes, we need to get more kids into the system. And in that spirit, tell your friends, tell everybody, in the spirit of bringing people up, 2 scholarships for 2 African American or Afro Latinx people. I would like to offer to train with me in New York. Tell your friends, I'm gonna put up social media because you get a class, you get a class, you get a class right now.
Listen, I just want to say real quick, this is what I love about this community is that you don't have to be up here on stage to make a difference. For example, you brought up a really, really excellent point. Antonio is talking about a program he's working on. Franklin said there's tons of programs that I wasn't even aware of, right? What if we started a Facebook group or a website where you can have a list of all of the events that have opportunities for people who don't have the economic feasibility to get there? And that's someone that anyone can start that website, right?
No.
Seku's gonna make it happen.
So if I say, okay. You know, so I can say this much. So this is like what we need to do, and I think me and Anna have had conversations about this kind of thing as well. One of the things that I did, I came back from Senegal, and I was just like, I want to do something. I was like, I don't know what it is. I went back to Senegal, and I came back, I was like, okay, I know what I want to do. And what it was is I wanted to reach out, and I wanted to, okay, I was teaching at Alvin Ailey, I was teaching at ballet, all these different places, but I had to realize something. I did realize something. It was great to teach these places, but I was just reaching people who already have privilege. They already have access. They have access to all this stuff, And even coming here, it's still people who just have access. They're already in the room. So I said, I know what I want to do. And one of the things I did is I started reaching out to organizations who do get funding already. So right now, I'm a curator for the Jazz Museum in Harlem. And everything I do is to reach out and increase music and dance for BIPOC Black, Indigenous people of color, and then also the LGBTQ community. So all of the programming that I do, and it's all free to them. But the hack was, I went to organizations that I know are getting funding. And I go, okay, so what are you doing? This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And I just do it, with the enthusiasm. And right now, yeah, I'm doing it, producing, curating, giving musicians and dancers jobs, but then also bringing it to children in all 5 boroughs, and also to senior centers, and to hospitals, and to different places, just to invigorate the community and get them in touch with music and dance. That's one thing that I'm doing. So I went that route. Year to Franklin, you can get the grants going, my route, and then the program that he's doing. Desiree just said, I am, therefore. And so there's many ways that we can do it, and I'm so thankful for you bringing that to the level. Yeah.
And to piggyback about what you said in the beginning of your statement was what it is as a Dominican. And let me tell you something. There is no way in the world you're gonna hear a Dominican say, I'm Black. That is not in the culture of Dominican at all. And even me growing up as Salvadorian and Dominican, my family would tell me, you cannot be with that dark-skinned person. And I'm like, huh? I mean, look at me. I'm not as light as you. And that's just to begin what I said to you earlier about it starts in the home. It starts how we're raised. So how to make a change. Start having these conversations with your family. Start bringing it up. It happens in the house. This is still happening to this very day. Even my cousins, I have to correct them. It's happening. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that, sure, it does start at the home, but it's because of the discrimination and racism that our parents went through, and the colonialist past.
Yes.
And that's important to acknowledge in all of us.
Thank you for saying that. That really struck, because that's yeah.
So if we can please give it up for our amazing panel. And let's let the conversations continue, right? This is just the beginning, so please take some of the ideas and the conversations and the questions. If you're still pondering, right? Take this to dinner, continue to have conversations, because I think, again, collectively, there are some solutions. Collectively, we can support each other. But thank you so much for creating space during this time to have conversations. Thank you.
Thank you everybody so much for coming. I did not expect another festival producer who's been in the business for a long time warned me, told me I'd be wasting my time with doing a panel that is the least attended thing. But look at you, all showed up. We're really thankful for that. And we're gonna keep doing these panels. We're gonna keep having the conversation no matter how many people show up, all right?